is Rosemary.
So, today I'm going to tell you all the story of Masha and the bear. So once upon a time, there was a little girl in Russia named Masha. And she was so little that she couldn't go into the forest by herself. And she would beg every day, "Can I go to the forest, Grandma and Grandpa?" And they'd be like, "No, you're too little." So then, she asked her grandparents, "Well, if my friends come with me, can I go to the forest?" And she said, "Well..." Her grandmother said, "If you get your other friends to go with you, and you promise not to leave their sight, you can go with them." So she got all her friends together, and they all went to the forest to scrounge for berries and mushrooms. And so they're walking through the forest, and Masha left the forest. She looked around all kind of wide-eyed and saw the birds singing and the different kinds of plants that she didn't have around her little house at home. And she got super excited and was just kind of bouncing around as she looked up, and where did everyone go? And so now Masha was lost in the forest. And it started to get later and later and colder and colder. And she was scared. Until she saw a little house, little round house. And she thought, "Great, I'll just go wait in there, and whoever lives there can come help me." So she goes into the house, and it's a mess. There's garbage everywhere, and the sink's full of dishes, and there's cobwebs and dust on everything, and one big sagging old chair. And so she just kind of crawls up into the chair and kind of looks around and just waits until the door bolts open. And in comes a bear. And he's like, "What are you doing in my house?" And she's like, "Well, I got lost in the woods and I couldn't find my way out, and this is the only house I found, and I don't really have anywhere else to go. Can you tell me how to get back to town?" "No, you live here now. You'll sweep my floors and dust my shelves and wash my dishes and cook my food." And that was how Masha lived for a while. Every morning the bear would get up and say, "I'm going to go scrounge for food. You stay here and clean and cook my evening's porridge." And he'd go and scrounge for food. And every day he'd come back and the door would burst open and the bear would kind of roll into his house. And he would say, "Where's my porridge?" And for a while, Masha thought it was kind of neat. But then she missed home. She wanted to go home and see Grandma and Grandpa and see all her friends again. So one day when the bear was out foraging, she got a little idea. So when the bear came home, the door burst open, and the bear was like, "Where's my porridge?" And she sets the bowl of porridge in front of him, and he just starts eating. And doesn't even use a spoon, just pow. And Masha said, "Bear, I'd really like to go see my babushka and my grandpa. Can I go see them? I promise I'll come back." It's like, "No, you don't know your way out of the forest. You'd get lost." "Well, what if you went for me? I could bake them a basket of goodies, and you could go on my behalf and just give it to them for me." So Bear thinks about it, and he drags his yellow claw down his chin over and over again. "Fine, tomorrow evening after I get home from foraging, I'll take a basket of goodies to your Grandma and Grandpa." So while the bear's out, she cooks pies, and she cooks cakes, and she makes pierogies, and the bear comes home, and the door bursts open, and the bear comes in. He's like, "I'll eat my porridge, then I'll go take your basket." She's like, "Well, after you eat your porridge, you should go outside to make sure it's not raining. Because if you take the basket with all the goodies in it in the rain, they'll all get wet and ruined." He's like, "I'll check after my porridge." And so, while he's eating his porridge, she gets down on a little metal tin and starts lining it with pierogies, getting it all full and nice for Grandma and Grandpa. And it's a big tin because he's a bear and he has big items. And so finally he kind of throws the bowl in the sink. He's like, "I'm going to go see if it's raining." And he's like, "Okay, but if it's not raining, you'll go tonight. And before you leave, in fact, I'm going to climb up in the tallest tree, and I'll watch you as you go, okay? He's like, fine. And he goes out to see if it's raining, and while he's outside, she crawls into the basket and pulls a tin of pierogies that just covers her and wears it like a hat. And so when Bear looks in the basket, he doesn't see anything but a tin of pierogies on top of some cakes and pies. So he closes the lid and slings the pack onto his back and starts walking towards the village. And he walks and he walks and he walks through the spruce trees and through the pines. He walks past birch trees and he stops and he scratches his ribs and he yawns. He says, I'm tired. In fact, if I take one more step, my bones are going to give out. So I'm going to have a seat and eat a pie. And Masha, from the other side of the basket, away from the bear, opens it just a crack and says, I see you. Don't stop. Don't sit down. Don't eat a pie. Get back on your feet and go to my grandma and grandpa's. And he's like, she has really good eyes. I didn't think she could see me from there. And what a loud voice she has. So he continues on, slumping his big form over the hills, through a river, just tromp, tromp, tromp. And then he's about to give out. He can't take another step, so he sits down on a rock. He says, if I take another step, my bones are going to give out. I'm going to have a seat and eat a pie. And then Misha opens the other side of the basket, puts her tiny little lips up to the hole and says, don't you sit down. Don't eat a pie. Get back on your way to my grandma and grandpa's house. Huh? That tree she climbed must have been very, very tall. Because she can still see me and I can see everything I'm doing. I'm surprised I can hear her. But he knows the village isn't that far, so he's like, well, I'll finish my trip. So he tromps his way through the last brush and bushes and comes to the village and bangs on the gate of her grandma and grandpa's house. And banging on the gate arouses the village dogs, and they come barking and yapping, and the bear hates dogs, and there's so many of them that he panics, and he drops the basket and runs into the forest. And that's how Masha got home and ended her vacation with the bear.